It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, our top story. Sweden's worst mass shooting. 10 people are killed, including the suspected attacker at an education centre.
When I passed the entrance to the school, I looked down and there was blood everywhere. And then I looked to the right, inside the school, it was blood everywhere on the floor.
Also tonight, we did not find any murders. Medical experts dispute the evidence used to convict Lucy Letby of killing 7 babies.
The medical evidence doesn't support murder in any of these babies, just natural causes and bad medical care.
President Trump hosts Israel's Prime Minister at the White House after instructing maximum pressure on Iran to stop it developing nuclear weapons. A press conference is due to happen shortly. We'll bring you that live. US tariffs on China come into effect. Beijing retaliates, ramping up the chance of a trade war. We take an in-depth look at the impacts on the global economy. Inside UK care homes, Sky News investigates bruises, maggots, and claims of neglect. Plus, 700,000 women to take part in a new trial using artificial intelligence to screen for breast cancer. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages in our press preview from 10:30 right through to midnight. Good evening. We just want to take you straight to the White House now, where President Donald Trump is meeting Benjamin Netanyahu. There will be a joint press conference shortly, but let's listen in.
October 7th, there was nothing, and some very poor leadership led to a lot of problems and a lot of death. And it's a shame, but we'll put it out. We'll put out the fires. We have a lot of fires, but we'll put them out.
Mr. President, why do you still support the Palestinian state like the peace plan you presented in January 2020? Is this plan still on the table?
Well, a lot of plans change with time, and a lot of death has occurred since I left and now came back. This death occurred not while I was here, but while somebody else was here. It shouldn't have happened. They shouldn't have allowed it to happen. It would have never happened, and that includes Russia. Ukraine would have never happened. Not even a little bit, not even a chance. But now we are faced with a situation that's different, in some ways better and in some ways worse. But we're faced with a very complex and difficult situation, but we'll solve the problem.
Mr. President, did the refugees you get from Gaza out of Gaza, if not Jordan, Egypt, what other countries you think might accept Palestinians from Gaza?
Well, I think Jordan and Egypt will. I know they've spoken about it with you, and they say they're not going to accept. I say they will. But I think other countries will accept also. I think that Gaza maybe is a demolition site right now. If you look at Gaza, it's all, I mean, there's hardly a building standing, and the ones that are going to collapse. You can't live in Gaza right now, and I think we need another location. I think it should be a location that's going to make people happy. You look over the decades, it's all death in Gaza. This has been happening for years. It's all death. If we can get a beautiful area to resettle people permanently in nice homes and where they can be happy and not be shot, not be killed, not be knifed to death like what's happening in Gaza. And right now you have in Gaza a very dangerous situation in terms of explosives all over the place, in terms of tunnels that nobody knows who's in the tunnel. The whole thing is a mess. And I think that if we can resettle, and I believe we can do it in areas where the leaders currently say no. I mean, I've been saying that with Mexico, having to do with the border and all of the things, and you saw what happened, 10,000 soldiers, and they're going to do a good job. I really believe that, and I believe Canada's going to do a good job also. They said the same thing, and then they did something much different than what you were hearing. This is a very, very difficult situation, but we're going to get it solved. I don't think people should be going back to Gaza. I think that Gaza has been very unlucky for them. They've lived like hell. They lived like you're living in hell. Gaza is not a place for people to be living. And the only reason they want to go back, and I believe this strongly, is because they have no alternative. What's the alternative? Go where? There's no other alternative. If they had an alternative, they'd much rather not go back to Gaza and live in a beautiful alternative that's safe.
Mr. President,
would Palestinians have the right to return to Gaza if they left while the rebuilding was happening?
It would be my hope that we could do something really nice, really good, where they wouldn't want to return. Why would they want to return? The place has been hell. It's been one of the meanest, toughest places on earth. And right now, I've seen every picture from every angle, better than if I were there. And nobody can live there. You can't live there. So if we can build them through massive amounts of money supplied by other people, very rich nations, and they're willing to supply it. If we can build something for them in one of the countries, and it could be Jordan, and it could be Egypt, it could be other countries, and you could build 4 or 5 or 6 areas. It doesn't have to be one area, but you take certain areas and you build really good quality housing, like a beautiful town, like someplace where they can live and not die. Because Gaza is a guarantee that they're going to end up dying. The same thing's going to happen again. It's happened over and over again, and it's going to happen again as sure as you're standing there, Peter. So I hope that we could do something where they wouldn't want to go back. Who would want to go back? They've experienced nothing but death and destruction.
If Egypt and Jordan tell you no, what will you do then?
Well, I don't think they're going to tell me no.
Mr. President,
I don't think they're going to tell me no. I think they're going to tell Biden no, and I think they're going to tell other people no.
So you think it will happen at the end?
I think there's a good chance, yeah.
How
I'd like
many
to see it
people are you thinking about?
All of them. I mean, we're talking about probably 1,000,007 people, 1,000,007, maybe 1,000,008. But I think all of them. I think they'll be resettled in areas where they can live a beautiful life and not be worried about dying every day. Wait.
Mr. President,
Yeah.
do you support building settlements, Jewish settlements back in Gaza in the next years?
Say it.
Building settlements, Jewish settlements back in Gaza in the next year. Do you support this idea?
I don't see it happening. It's too dangerous for people. Nobody can go there. It's too dangerous. Nobody wants to be there. Warriors don't want to be there. Soldiers don't want to be there. How can you have people go back? You're saying go back into Gaza now? The same thing's going to happen. It'll only be death. The best way to do it is you go out and you get beautiful, open areas with the sunlight coming through, and you build something nice. And they are not going to want to. They are not going to want to go back to Gaza.
Prime Minister Netanyahu, what is your message to the families of the hostages that look at this deal, that are worried that this deal won't go through? What do you say to them at this moment?
Same message I said from the beginning of the war. We'll get them out, get them back. We got over 70%, close to 75% of the people who everybody believed will not get out. We got them in successive deals, and most recently with the help of President Trump. We're not going to give up on any of them, and we're not going to give up on our other war aims. Hamas is not going to be in Gaza, and we're going to get everyone back.
And you would not have.
Prime Minister, how optimistic are you about reaching phase 2 of the ceasefire? How optimistic are you about that happening?
Well, we're going to try. That's one of the reasons, one of the things we're going to talk about here. And if we, you know, when Israel and the United States work together, and President Trump and I work together, you know, the chances go up a lot. It's when we don't work together, Israel and the United States don't work together, that creates problems. When the other side sees daylight between us, and occasionally in the last few years, to put it mildly, they saw daylight, then it's more difficult. When we cooperate,
isn't it the right
chances are good.
Once and for all?
Say it.
Now that Iran is so weak, isn't it the right time to hit their nuclear facilities once and for all?
So you say Iran is so weak. I appreciate you saying that. They're not weak. They're very strong right now, and we're not going to allow them to have a nuclear weapon. It's very simple. You know, I signed a very strong proclamation. Iran was in big trouble when I left. They were broke. They didn't have money for Hamas. They didn't have any money for Hezbollah. You had no problem. October 7th could have never happened. When I left, October 7th could have never happened. And frankly, Russia and Ukraine, as I said, could never have happened. They became very strong very fast. They sold massive amounts of oil to China and everybody else who would not buy the oil when I was president, because we said, don't buy the oil. And they became very rich very quickly. But they're not weak. They're not weak. They're strong. Doesn't mean they won't be weak. But you know what? We just don't want them to have a nuclear weapon. They can't have a nuclear weapon.
The Prime Minister, sorry, Mr. President, the Prime Minister wants you to strike Iran. That's what he wants.
You don't know what he wants. What do you know about anything? Go ahead.
But is that option on the table?
Yes, please.
President Trump, is that option on the table?
You're not just talking about Jordan and Egypt.
No, could be other places too.
So in the Gulf,
There are many people that have reached out, many countries, many leaders of countries that have reached out that would like to participate in that. Doesn't have to be Jordan and Egypt, but I think it would be also them.
Mr. President, your relationship with Mr. Netanyahu knew ups and downs. How do you describe it?
No, I think it's mostly ups.
Mr. President, what about the Palestinian Authority? Should we rule Gaza because Gaza will be empty?
What?
The Palestinian Authority, can it rule Gaza? What do you think?
Well, it's had a pretty hard time, wouldn't you say? I'd say it's had a pretty bad time of it.
Mr. President, Qatar has, you've criticized in the past as a funder of terrorism, so as the Prime Minister, do you think they're part of the solution or part of a problem moving forward?
I think they're trying to help. Qatar is absolutely trying to help. I know them very well, and they're doing everything they can. Very tough situation, but they're absolutely trying to help. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
Press, let's go. Come on, guys. Thank you. Have a great day. Thank you, guys. See you soon. Thank you, guys.
Okay, well, that was the chat there with Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu before the news conference, which is scheduled to take place any moment now. So those are very latest pictures from the White House, in which Donald Trump, a range of issues he spoke on, including Gaza, the acceptance by Jordan and Egypt of Palestinians. He also spoke about Iran. Well, standing by, our US correspondent Mark Stone is at the White House and will be at that news conference shortly, also joined by our international affairs editor, Dominic Waghorn. But Mark, to you first of all, so many subjects broached there and then. What are we expecting from the news conference?
Well, that in itself was a news conference. We're going to get a second one here in the East Room of the White House. But look, what Donald Trump said there was of profound significance. He was calling openly, for the first time in such stark terms, for the permanent resettlement of everyone in Gaza to, quote, a beautiful area where Palestinians can resettle permanently. He says that Gaza is a living hell right now and that it needs to be rebuilt, that it will take 10 years to rebuild, maybe a lot longer, and that everyone who lives there should be resettled permanently. This is of profound significance because Palestinians have for many, many decades believed that they are being pushed out of their homeland. Indeed, the people who currently live in Gaza didn't once live there. They lived elsewhere in what is now Israel. And so they will feel that history is repeating itself. So I think some people will argue that either Donald Trump is ignoring history, or he is indifferent to history, or he doesn't know the history in his call for Palestinians to be permanently resettled. The issue will be that he also wants to further the so-called Abraham Accords, this remarkable diplomatic deal that was done under his first presidency, which saw diplomatic relations put in place between Israel and some Gulf Arab countries. He wants to further that. The jewel in the crown is a peace deal, a normalization deal with Saudi Arabia. Well, the Saudis will not, as we understand it at the moment, agree to any resettlement of their brethren, the Palestinians in Gaza. That is a red line for Saudi Arabia. They want to see a two-state solution Israelis, Jewish Israelis and Palestinians living side by side in the same area of land. Of course, the other issue, which Donald Trump did not address, is where would Palestinians go if they could be persuaded to move? And I see absolutely no chance of that happening. If they could be persuaded to move, or indeed if they were forced to move, where would they go? Well, Trump has said Jordan should take them. Many, many millions of Palestinians already live in Jordan, those that were pushed out in the Nakba, as it was known many decades ago. They are already refugees in Jordan. Egypt has been told that they should take some too, but both Egypt and Jordan have said absolutely not. We will not take them because their home is in Gaza. And honestly, I'm sort of absorbing it now, but it is an extraordinary statement there from President Trump, and it will be music to the ears of the more extreme elements of Israeli society.
And Dominic, the president also spoke about Iran, that coming after signing an executive order or memo regarding Iran and their ability to actually produce nuclear weapons.
Yeah, I mean, as Mark was saying, that was extraordinary what he said about Gaza. It was breathtaking, even from Donald Trump. We'll have to see how our countries in the region respond to it. I think what he said about Iran, though, was more predictable and in line with what we've heard him say since he's come into office. So essentially what he said, and he was asked, is Iran weak now? And is this not a good time to strike Iran, which is obviously something those on the right and others in Israel would like to see. And I think probably Benjamin Netanyahu would like to see some kind of commitment from Donald Trump that he would help the Israelis strike Iran's nuclear facilities if it came to it. But he actually said, I don't think that Iran is weak at the moment. He said Iran is very strong right now. We've got to not allow it to have nuclear weapons. And the reason he gave for its strength now was twofold. He said partly because he left, and even though he pulled America out of the nuclear deal, and therefore, in his mind, he deprived the Iranians of money that deal gave them in terms of lifting sanctions. He says that the situation is now a lot worse than from when he was in office. And the main blame he's giving for that is Joe Biden allowing oil sales. And he said he warned Joe Biden as he left office, don't allow the Iranians to sell oil. And Joe Biden allowed the Iranians to sell oil to the tune of at least well over $50 billion a year. And Donald Trump has done what he said he would do on the campaign. Today, he's issued an edict saying that he's going to reintroduce his maximum policy on Iran, and that will target most of all oil sales, and that will hurt the Iranians where they can be hurt most. And he's going to do that by sanctioning ports, many of them in China, where the Iranians sell their oil and have it refined. Now, that will have a twofold effect. It will deprive the Iranians of hard currency. It also could lead to the price of oil going up. That could lead to unrest, particularly in rural, poor areas of Iran, but also the cities, where inflation is at 50%, over 50%. And the Iranians, that is going to concentrate the minds of those in Iran's government who will be worried about the impact of that. And at the same time, though, he said he is open to a deal. He doesn't want any of this to happen or be imposed if there is a possibility of a deal. So a kind of double-edged offer there, or a threat and offer to the Iranians. We'll have to see how the Israeli Prime Minister responds to that.
OK, Dominic and Mark, thank you both. Mark, will be back to you, of course, when that news conference starts at the White House. Sweden's Prime Minister has called it the worst mass shooting in the country's history. 10 people have been killed after an attack on a school for adults, and video has emerged tonight of people taking cover in the classrooms. Well, the shooting happened in the city of Åbro, around 100 miles to the west of Stockholm. Police have said that although the motive isn't yet known, it is not believed to be terror-related. Sky's international correspondent Alex Rossi reports.
As the gunman started shooting, students fled.
Oh my God!
They are clearly terrified. Others hid in their classrooms, barricading the doors.
We were sitting and hiding under the tables in the classroom, and we heard loud bangs. After maybe 2 hours, the police came, and when they took us out from the classroom, when I passed the entrance to the school, I looked down and there was blood everywhere.
Those caught up in the violence feared they'd not get out alive.
En kille bredvid mig, han fick skjuta här i axeln.
A guy next to me was shot in the shoulder. He was bleeding a lot. When I looked behind me, I saw 3 people on the floor bleeding. Everyone was shocked. They said, "Go out, get out." Me and my friend tried to save the life of this person. People were very shocked. The police were not on site, and neither was the ambulance. So we had to help. I took my friend's shawl and tied it tightly around his shoulder so that he wouldn't bleed so much.
Helicopters could be seen flying overhead as response teams scrambled to the location. Armed police soon arrived on the scene. The authorities say the suspect was not previously known to them.
We now know that around 10 people died here today. We cannot provide more specific details at this time due to the extent of the damage. We still believe we have the primary perpetrator in custody, although we're not ruling out the involvement of others. He is not known to the police from before and has no connections to any gang. Based on what we know, we believe he acted alone.
The shooting happened just after midday in the city of Örebro, which is about 200 kilometres west of Stockholm. This campus houses a number of schools, but the attack happened at an adult education centre. And the violence has once again raised questions about the growing levels of gun violence in Sweden. It has the highest gun crime death rate in the European Union.
We have witnessed brutal, deadly violence against completely innocent people. Many questions remain unanswered, and I cannot provide those answers either. But the time will come when we will know what happened, how it could occur, and what motives may have been behind it. Let us not speculate.
It may be a few days before a clearer picture emerges of the shooter's motive, as investigators continue their work. But this is already the country's worst mass shooting. Alex Rossi, Sky News.
Lucy Letby is the UK's most prolific child killer in modern times. She's serving 15 whole life terms in prison after she was convicted of murdering 7 babies and attempting to murder 7 others between June 2015 and June 2016. Now, a panel of medical experts is claiming she did not commit the murders, disputing the evidence and giving alternative causes of deaths, including poor medical care. Sky's health correspondent Ashish Joshi reports.
We did not find any murders. In all cases, death or injury were due to natural causes or just bad medical care.
An unprecedented intervention. A panel of world-renowned paediatric specialists say their review of the evidence shows there's no proof Lucy Letby caused any deaths or injuries to babies in her care. The former nurse is serving 15 whole life terms for murdering 7 infants and attempting to murder 7 others between June 2015 and June 2016.
There was evidence to suggest that not only was there problems with the medical care, but there were problems in the hospital with respect to staffing and organization and infrastructure and plumbing and all those issues.
At Letby's trial, prosecutors pointed to skin discoloration in several of the victims as evidence that air had been injected into their veins. But the panel laid out alternative causes of death in many of the cases at the Countess of Chester Hospital.
The main premise of the whole of the prosecution's case in relation to air embolism is wrong and should never have been said. And B, we know how this baby died, or we know how this baby collapsed, and it wasn't at the hands of one individual.
Letby is now represented by a different legal team, and 2 previous attempts at appealing her conviction have failed.
Dr. Dowie Evans, the lead prosecution witness, whose evidence has come under close scrutiny, is standing by his testimony. He says he's concerned that some people are getting their facts wrong.
The Criminal Cases Review Commission has announced it will now review Letby's case, but warned that speculation has been driven by some parties who've only had a partial view of the evidence.
It's vital that the Criminal Cases Review Commission reviews this evidence and any other evidence as carefully and as thoroughly as possible, because there isn't going to be another chance for many years.
It will take months for them to review the case, and it will take several months after that, I dare say, for an appeal to be arranged.
There is an ongoing public inquiry into the murders Lucy Letby has been convicted of and how the hospital responded. The former nurse was convicted after a 5-year investigation and 2 trials. For the parents of the victims in need of closure, the panel's findings ask yet more questions that need to be answered. Ashish Joshi, Sky News.
The family of a 15-year-old boy who was killed in a stabbing at his school say they are utterly heartbroken and their lives will never be the same again. Harvey Wilgoose died after an incident at All Saints Catholic High School in Sheffield yesterday. Another 15-year-old boy was arrested on suspicion of murder and remains in custody. Our chief North of England correspondent, Greg Milam, reports.
At the gates of All Saints Catholic High School, the memorial to Harvey Wilgoose continues to grow. The tributes from friends and teachers, and in a statement from his family. We are utterly heartbroken at the loss of our beautiful boy, Harvey Goose, they said. Our lives are devastated and will never be the same again. We have lost a beloved son, brother, grandson, cousin, nephew, and most importantly, a best friend to all. Harvey will be forever known for being a caring, loving, and funny young man. This family friend, who wanted to remain anonymous, saw Harvey on the tram on Monday morning. His death has been devastating.
He was like a little brother to me, a little cousin. He was literally like family to me. He's funny, he's cheeky, he's just caring, he's so funny. He's just a lovely boy. He'd never hurt anyone. Like, he's never been nasty. He's just not a nasty person at all. I just can't get my head around it at the minute because I just really wouldn't expect it to be someone like him. I just really can't believe it.
The school has remained closed. The 15-year-old who'd been arrested is still in custody. South Yorkshire police have urged people not to speculate about the incident online. They say to ensure justice for the victim and his family. Among those at the school today, the grandparents of a girl who witnessed the incident.
It was at lunchtime. They were all going into lunch. There was a little bit of an argument. Girls were screaming, and as she turned round, Harvey was on the floor.
For this parent, whose daughter was a friend of Harvey's, the return to school, when it comes, will be difficult.
If they're not comfortable, I'll just have to keep them off for a couple of days because it's not something that's easy to get over. It's difficult. It's not an easy thing, even as an adult, to understand what has happened at school. So for 14 and 15-year-olds, it's even harder.
It is a reflection of the shock being felt by so many across this community. Greg Milam, Sky News, Sheffield.
Mexico and Canada may have narrowly avoided tariffs imposed by the US president, but in China, the tariffs have taken effect and a trade war between the two countries is ramping up. China has already hit back, announcing a fleet of tariffs on US goods, including coal and liquefied natural gas. Our Asia correspondent Nicole Johnston reports from the port city of Guangzhou in southern China.
Nansha Port in Guangzhou, one of the largest and busiest in China. This is where Trump's trade war hits home. He's imposed a 10% tariff on everything China exports to the United States. And now China is hitting back.
China's tariffs are designed to send a message that it won't take threats from the United States lying down, that it can impose its own tariffs and sanctions and hit the US where it hurts by restricting some of the world's most important critical minerals.
China wants to show it is standing up to the US. In a statement, it said, the United States' imposition of tariffs on Chinese products exported to the US seriously violates World Trade Organization rules and is in bad nature. But Trump's not worried about that. He wants to punish China, blaming it for exporting chemicals to Mexican drug cartels to produce fentanyl. This is the drug which is fueling the US opioid crisis.
Methamphetamine and fentanyl opioids is really a game changer for...
Critics accuse China of not cracking down hard enough on its chemical labs.
There's over 160,000 different chemical companies in China, but there's literally tens of thousands of brokers that work with those companies to export chemicals throughout the Western Hemisphere. So a lot more work has to be done to tamper down on the exportation of fentanyl because it's so lethal.
But China says the drug epidemic is an American-made problem.
China has given support to the U.S. in response to the fentanyl issue in the spirit of humanity and conducted counter-narcotics cooperation with the U.S. side in a broad-based and in-depth way.
And in the back streets of Guangzhou, clothing factories have shut up shop for the week-long spring holiday. They'll return to work to a new reality, protectionism writ large.
China is never afraid. We don't need anything from them, right? China produces so many products, exports to the US. It's them who need our products.
This country depends on its exporting might to keep the economy humming.
It's like you kill 1,000 enemy soldiers but lose 800 of your own. China is a manufacturing power. If the US makes clothes domestically, the cost will certainly be higher than exports from us.
Trump doesn't like losers or suckers. To him, trade is a game of strength. Control the game, and you control your rival. Nicole Johnston, Sky News, Guangzhou.
OK, well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll be taking you to that news conference at the White House with Donald Trump meeting Benjamin Netanyahu. And also, we'll hope to take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview. Do stay with us if you can.